everyone, welcome. Mandalorian Season 2 is out, and I'm joined by Alex and Davis to talk some shop.
Yes.
Gentlemen, before we do anything, I'm going to put this out there right now to everyone watching, listening, wherever you're enjoying this. We all three enjoyed this episode. However, the nature of this show means we're going to talk and express our feelings about the episode for the very first time. We have not discussed this with each other at all, and so we're going to have thoughts, and we may disagree. It's kind of what we do. So with that said, my first question, is this entire season all 1 hour episodes, or was it that special? What's the deal?
They fluctuated last season too. It was like very, sometimes it was 40 minutes, sometimes it was 50 minutes, sometimes it was 35 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like that we had like a 30-something minute one in there.
Yeah, I thought they were all 30-minute-ish. Maybe I was just remembering wrong. But when I went to press play and I saw it was an hour, I was like, what? A gift? Okay.
It was a meaty hour. It felt like a movie. It was good.
I will say, although it did have a movie-esque quality, the storytelling was real simple.
Yeah.
It was like, here is a very simple slice of life story.
This is the same problem that it had last season, where it's copying movies, but not doing it at a full length. This is definitely a lot better than, I think, some of the stuff from the first season, where like doing an entire movie in like 30, 40 minutes really stretches it. But even still, they're taking like a lot of Western movies and then doing them basically exactly, not twisting it in any way, but then also you don't have the extra like half an hour that you would need for character moments or other things to like happen to make it have a little more impact.
I don't know, man. I think I completely disagree with you, but we'll get into it. That's the show, right?
This is another one where it's like everything is so obvious and on the nose that you're just like, yep, I get this. I'll give it to you right now. I think like from a production standpoint and a music and everything else, this is like a 12 out of 10. I am like in awe that the final scene as well. Like, don't even go waste your money on that terrible Monster Hunter movie that's coming out. Just watch the last 16 minutes of this episode and you got it. And it's like great. But then the writing and the character work is just like, oh, come on. Oh, it's so close. It's so close.
What are you looking for? Like what I feel like this is, rather than a movie, right? Like, I think it's a mistake to compare this directly to a movie. When I said earlier that it felt like a movie, I meant more like what we were just talking about. It's the most beautiful the show has ever been. Like, we can all agree. You know, they've learned everything from the last season and just made a better version of that show again in terms of look and feel, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of what they're trying to do here, I think that it would be more accurate to say that it's like a Western TV show, like a Gunsmoke or something like that, where it's not necessarily about telling like an epic scale story. And I feel like I kind of appreciated just like a little slow burn aesthetic thing. And I think, honestly, that this type of storytelling, sort of back to the myth, back to the, just sort of like surface level dipping in because we don't care about the lore. We just want to like experience this world. I felt like that was really big here. And I think that because of that, I didn't mind the insane amount of fan service that was also here in this episode. Like, I feel like there was as much fan service in this episode of Mandalorian as there was in Rise of Skywalker, but where Rise of Skywalker completely stumbled and fell, and like maybe the guy who was holding the football died when he like got into the end zone, even because they made that fan service so central to the plot of the movie. Here, I didn't even get that mad at it, even though it was like a overt Star Wars reference like every 5 seconds.
The biggest issue with the episode, I think, goes back. It's like a middle ground between what Davis is talking about and what you're talking about, Alex, where like the storytelling that was done was not in a way that showed any major overall character growth or went into like more of Cobb Vanth or the relationship between the two or the townspeople or like, even the Weequay was just named Weequay, right? There's a lot of things about the episode that were missing. And I agree with Davis. It did feel like they could have added a little bit more. But on the flip side, them doing things like creating more of the language of the Sand People and more like seeing a crate dragon and like expanding on the universe. There was a lot of things they added to it that's also fascinating as a fan that is just like, oh, I'm into the lore of Star Wars. You got a lot to work with. I don't know.
Crate dragons, there's two parts of me. One half of me is like, look at how they massacred my boy. And then also I'm like, what an incredible like representation of like they just like changed crate dragons. They're like, you know what? Sure, crate dragons have existed in the lore for like 30 years. Fuck it. We're doing Tremors. And that's what
literally
they did.
Like they went off of what is still canon, right? Which is just that one skeleton.
Yeah.
In the waste, and they were just like, yeah, no, this is what it is.
It's weird because I guess you could be like, look, based technically off of the movie canon, but you also copied like an entire mission from KOTOR as the episode. Like you did all like Mos Pelgo, the whole idea of like luring him out and killing it with explosives and the crate like it's weird that you'll like take a lot and reference a lot of old canon stuff, but also then not do it. I don't know. Like for people that watch this that don't really like know much about the crate dragon, it's like it's fine.
It's better than fine. It's the best monster TV show thing I've ever seen.
You're right. Yeah, but it's also just like I don't know. As a person that knows, it just is like okay, it's still more of the same like pattern that I have with Disney Star Wars. I can't escape my feelings of Disney Star Wars when I watch this because they keep kind of doing the same shit over and over again.
I don't understand what it is because I encounter this opinion a lot, right? And I feel like what Jon Favreau is doing is he's making it very clear that he's creating somebody like Hellboy or somebody like Clint Eastwood.
The type of character is not a problem I have with this. Even conceptually how the show works, I have no problem with that either.
What I mean is like things like character development, things like relationship between the characters, those things can be important to a story. And I think that a lot of the time movies that are set in fantastical worlds often like benefit from having these types of moments in them to ground them. This was to me like a serialized old-fashioned Western, but they mixed it up because like instead of just going straight cowboy with it, they added like a sci-fi monster to it. And they had all the good stuff. They had like this awesome scene where he like jumps on the swoop bike and he like takes it slow through the town, which is, you know, like a classic cowboy thing. We have
very Western trope. Yeah,
absolutely. Everybody like walks out of the buildings on the main street to like mean mug him.
Yeah. And I just think there's something to that sort of unflappable character. You know, I think there's something to this sort of mythological being now who's known as the Mandalorian. You know what I mean?
But I think we all agree with that. I think we're all on board that that's dope. Yeah.
My problem is like it never goes more than that. Like they did that last season too, and it never elevates beyond that. It's just that. Like it's just that. They're still doing that, and it's still like cool in a way, but there is a ceiling.
I just feel like we're missing the forest for the trees. Like I feel like we're missing like the beautiful, like super awesome, like, you know, step-by-step, quick pace, well-acted cowboy action story by looking for something that the show never promises you, especially not on an episode-to-episode basis. You know, I feel like this was like a Monster of the Week episode that's sort of like a new normal.
I don't want it to elevate because they sent me a personalized letter saying this show is going to be this and they're not delivering it. I want it because I'm watching what they're giving me and they're like, regardless of what they want to do or not, they're in the uncanny valley of like Western movies and everything else. And the show is long enough that all I can do is just be like, okay, this is really cool, but like you are doing exactly this and you're not like putting any twists on it. The writing is not elevated in any way. Like I wish that I could ignore that, but I don't know. I like a viewer and I'm watching what they give me and that's what it is.
I think that what it's doing very well, and I'm not feeling like there's a piece missing. That's all I'm saying. Everything that we needed to like understand what happened in the episode is there, and I don't feel like
you're absolutely right. Everything that's needed to like the episode's there. I think, if I may guess, Davis,
you're right. They hit all of the like points that you would expect / need,
but it's just missing. Like it's just missing a thing.
Yeah, it doesn't have like its own flavor or personality, really.
Are we just looking for more like about the Mandalorians and about Baby Yoda?
No, just in general, like overall, I think I actually agree. And if I'm wrong on this assumption, Davis, it's the idea that like what's there on paper, what we got on film is good. Like it's good. It's a fun watch, but there's like a deeper part to it that's missing at the moment. That episode 1 of season 2 even though it's the first episode and we're back in it, it still felt like maybe like episode 2 or 3 of the first season.
I need to have something more to these characters. They're so cookie cutter. They're so by like committee and copied from other things that they just don't feel real. Like I don't like really feel like this town. Like we didn't spend enough time for me to like really care for them. And on top of all of it, what keeps like nagging me and keeps poking at me is like their insistence on making this massive, massive, massive world as fucking tiny as possible. Apparently Spatchka is the only fucking alcohol drank throughout the entire universe. Apparently Camptanos are the only way to keep goods secure nowadays. Apparently anything that important that ever happened on Tatooine over its 50 years also happens again or is referenced in this episode too. The world on top of it feels microscopic. Every euphemism on Tatooine has a womp rat in it. Apparently there's only 3 fucking animals on Tatooine.
I get that, but I mean, I feel like also though, like, you know, it's important, like when you make a TV show to like have the show reference itself and like create a world for people who maybe aren't looking at this show as like the latest window into this like grand imagination universe that they've been with since they were kids. And I think stuff like the Spatska coming back is like supposed to just make you feel like, oh yeah, hey, we're back. The good old stuff from last season.
There's something missing by small changes as well. Like, even though if you haven't read Aftermath, you literally don't care, right? You don't care about Cobb Vanth's story. This is the first time you're ever seeing this person.
They really like streamlined Cobb Vanth to a degree where I'm like, yikes.
Yeah, but they changed his story.
Video stuff versus book stuff, you're always going to see the book stuff be a little softer, especially since Wendig got bopped by Star Wars. I don't think they care too much about what he was going to do with it anymore.
But Cobb Vanth as a character in the book is a badass. Shoots people left and right and is awesome. And I think that the character we got in this, while still being cool, his like background story and how he got the armor is just straight up different. And it's different in a way that is like less cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just easier to like tell in 2 minutes. That's, I guaranteed, the only reason that they changed it. You know what I mean?
And that's not a good thing. That is a negative against it. We're like, yeah, it's easier.
Imagine you didn't read this book that like 1/5, maybe 1/20th, 1/35th of the people who watched this show.
Then I wouldn't care about Cobb Vanth at all. There's a difference. Is like Cobb Vanth in the book is such, the way they tell it in his story is like, it's so curious that we've been talking about him, even though he's like in 2 mini stories for like years after it happened. Here, he's just like an a-hole that like luckily grabbed a thing, traded it for armor, and then traded that armor away later. And then cool, Timmy the Oliphant. Like that's it. There's nothing to him.
In the books, Cobb Vanth is a mystery. Like, who is this person? Where does he come from? In this, he kind of bumbled his way into getting money, found the Jawas, was like, all right, I want the armor. And then it's almost like the armor made him a badass, when really I think the idea was like he was a badass who found Boba Fett's armor and now is a badass in Boba. Like, he was the badass. Boba Fett's armor allows him to do more.
I think he's still a badass.
And before, he was even more badass because I'm trying to remember the exact details, but he like was acting as a go-between for the Jawas and this like either mining guild or imperial douchebag. Do you remember this? And they were like in the back room, and he like took it and then became a thing. And I'm like, he's just like a passive character in this. He just like was there and ran and grabbed it and wandered in the desert until he was found, and he was just sitting there drinking until he looked over to his left and saw something and pointed to it. That's like so base and lazy compared to this guy who
I don't think it is. I think
snooched his way into like the Jawa's inner circle, got this fucking thing, and then kicked out the mining guild.
I think you're like letting your knowledge of another story like sort of like occlude what's going on in this show, which is...
I already said, if I even took away from the other story, then he's just a plain nothing. Like, there's nothing to Cobb Vanth. He's like so paper thin.
He's already thin. He's from about 10 pages from 5 years ago, and that's all we got of him.
With those 10 pages, the questions, the implications brought about are so much greater. That's good storytelling. That's how it works.
Let me just lay this out for you, though. Like, imagine you're just a person who likes Star Wars and hasn't read that one book, right? Like, let's just imagine you're that person, and you like Star Wars well enough, and, you know, you like The Mandalorian, and you know about Boba Fett, probably, because, you know, just through osmosis of watching a show called Mandalorian and being a Star Wars fan, you know who Boba Fett is. And then you see this guy in the show who's wearing Boba Fett's armor, and then he takes off his helmet, which you don't ever do as a Mandalorian according to the rules of the show. So you're like, oh my God, who's this motherfucker? And then it turns out he's like definitely not a Mandalorian. He is like a rascally cowboy who's played by Timothy Olyphant, who you also recognize, and he's wearing Boba Fett's armor.
Who also just looks like Michael Biehn now.
Yeah, he's kind of just getting a little old now. But my point is, I think that for the average person who saw this, they were left with the questions that you were left with after reading about him. And I think that no matter what happens in a TV show...
Cobb Vanth?
I highly doubt it.
All right. You know what? Yeah, I'm fucking wrong. Whatever. But I just think, yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a real Star Wars fan. But here's what I will say.
If you were...
If I was, I would say something different than what I meant to say.
Going back to the very, very beginning, I wonder if maybe this is the thread here that needs to be pulled. The idea that maybe no one, at least in the Disneyverse, can be as badass as the Mandalorian. So in the very beginning of it, he like hangs that dude up. Like he takes all those guys out, hangs the dude up.
John Leguizamo, by the way.
Yeah.
Which I did not know.
That was a cool scene. Do we know what planet that is?
No, but that was cool. Like that slum area.
It had like Clone Wars propaganda street art or something like that.
Let's call it Ratooine.
Yeah, so on Tatooine, where the giant street rats are, like when he hung that guy up at the end and he had like his cool Batman moment, I was like, oh, that's neat. What a cool start. And I feel like maybe by making the Mandalorian such an anti-hero, Cobb Vanth, who in the books was an anti-hero, to make him an equal like anti-hero is maybe too anti-hero. I don't know what the vibe is with Disney, but maybe that's the thing that they decided to do.
The only reason they named this guy Cobb Vanth is just because probably someone in the story group was like, please just make him Cobb Vanth. You know what I mean? Like, I almost would look at this as a different character than the other person. And I don't think that we should be judging this TV show because I guarantee you, Jon Favreau does not give a fuck about that book. And I don't think anybody does, really, you know, except for people who...
I don't know.
I really don't. I really don't think that people who are watching Mandalorian are sitting here looking at it and thinking about Cobb Vanth and being like, I can't believe they ruined my favorite character from the one scene that he was in from a book from almost 10 years ago.
Look, I don't think they give a shit about ruining any characters after watching Rise of Skywalker.
Or Last Jedi.
That's not the same as this. That's not the same as this.
But with that said, though, I think that I honestly do believe that the whole Cobb Vanth thing is something they did consider because Boba Fett's armor, obviously Boba Fett's at the end of this. And I feel like maybe...
if that's not Boba Fett, I quit. If that's not Boba Fett,
dude,
I quit.
It is Boba Fett or it's a clone because it's what's his face.
I don't care if it's... that would be fun too if it's Rex.
But at the very end of that one episode where there's the boot over the dead Imperial assassin.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to, maybe that's Boba Fett? Because that was on Tatooine. And maybe the whole like through arc of all this is the Mandalorian at the end is like, and now I join with Boba. Like, I don't know what's about to happen, but maybe they needed to get the armor back from Cobb Vanth to continue this story. I have no clue.
I think that Boba Fett's a fake out.
I'm like curious in a like I don't think that Boba Fett should be in this, but I'm like now just curious how they're going to try and like tie him in or make it seem like him hunting down his armor means anything. I'm like just curious what they're gonna try and do with Boba Fett.
I think it's not Boba Fett.
Do you think it's Rex and they're gonna give Rex Boba Fett's armor?
Why?
I don't know if they're gonna do that. I don't know
clue.
if they're gonna do that. I don't know if they're gonna do that, but I could see them doing it as a fake out for people who are in the know to be like, oh, that's Boba Fett. And then, you know, we know Ahsoka's going to be in the show. So, you know, it could be possible that Rex is there.
Honestly, I can't see either way why it would matter. Like, the clones don't feel any sort of, like, Mandalorian, like, pride.
Right.
And at least from the, like, you know, canon, the newer canon with, like, young Boba, he doesn't seem to give really two shits about it either. So, like, him hunting down his armor already is like, all right, we'll see how this goes.
He's still Boba Fett. He's still like probably the deadliest person in the Star Wars galaxy, right? Like,
I don't even know that's true, honestly.
Theoretically, like according to his reputation, right? Like he's still Boba Fett.
Maybe?
Dude, I don't know, man.
They pulled a Boba Fett on the Boba Fett backpack in this episode.
Yeah.
I'm sure that whatever they're doing, they're trying to do a good job. And I think that like, regardless of whether it's, you know, Rex or Boba Fett, I don't think that's necessarily a good or bad thing. I just hope that what they do feels earned. Like, you know, this is the same thing I felt about Rise of Skywalker, which is just like, yeah, okay, like the clone is here, she's a Palpatine, whatever. If that was good, I wouldn't have like balked at it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have some sort of like weird need for certain plot elements to occur or certain things to exist. It's just like, to me, comes down to whether or not it's actually, exciting. And like, do I want to see Rex and Ahsoka? In this context, kind of, just because I want to see them as real. But like, I don't think that naturally their story brings them here. And I think that if they do bring them here, that it just has to be, like it should make sense. And I think we are going to get to episode 9 a little bit. I think, we're all in denial about it right now because we don't want anything to have to do with episode 9. But like, Baby Yoda, man.
I also think that like Disney doesn't want people to like think too much about episode 9.
Possibly, but like Baby Yoda is like being hunted for by Imperials for like Force reasons, and it's, right after Return of the Jedi when the Emperor died.
But it's not the First Order. This is different. This is a different thing.
Sure, but neither is the Empire the First Order. You know what I mean? Neither is the Emperor the First Order, I mean. Like, he had his own plan.
I guess? I don't know. I mean, he was Snoke.
It is his thing.
Yeah.
In the way that he is the Separatists and the way that he is the Republic. But I think that just in the way that the First Order exists, I think he could be like doing his own thing, which he was. Going again back to Wendig's stuff in the bunker with that dude on Jakku. He had a separate plan that was like, the First Order is going to go do its own bullshit. And then eventually I'm going to take them over with my test tube babies.
That was the best part of that entire book series, was the fact that they're like out in the ethers, like something worse than the Empire. Like, I love that shit, and we'll never get back to that. That's never going to come up again.
It doesn't diminish those books any
it's
that we never got to pay
but we'll
off.
never get there. Yeah.
Dude, pour one out for Chuck Wendig, man.
They did him wrong, dude. They did him wrong. It's heartbreaking.
My point is, I'm not so mad about stuff changing as I am about them putting somebody's name on something and doing a bad job. And I never get mad about changes. That's my thing.
I get mad about changes when they don't like have a point. Because I've always been like, this has a long history of expanding universes, and sure, you started it over or whatever, but like, you got to respect what came before. That's like thing number one. And if you're going to change it and it's worse, then I also just have a problem, because I'm like, why did you change it if you didn't like elevate it?
They just changed Cobb Vanth from some good buddy that they were probably never going to touch again into like a fun nod to be like a character in a framing device story for The Mandalorian that didn't really need him, other than that we needed to probably get Boba Fett's armor into the mix somehow.
Do we need Boba Fett's armor in the mix? I don't think so, but
It could be cool. Like, I don't know yet. I have no idea.
Whatever the payoff is, yeah, we have an entire season.
This is the problem, is that there's so many things that we're like, I guess we'll have to see how it pays off, but they don't move the marker down, or the goalpost at all much in these episodes. They keep introducing new things where you're like, okay, this could be cool if you pay it off, but based on the way you do a lot of things, I'm worried about how it's going to be paid off.
Well, yes, but I will remind you that last time when we were doing this, it was like, who the fuck is this guy? Who's this fucking guy in this episode? Where are these people coming from? What is this? And then all of a sudden you realize, like halfway through the show, like, oh no, this is like, these people all matter and all like actually are kind of like the cast of the show. We just didn't realize it right away because the show is kind of like Hellboy, like I said, where it's like practically an anthology series.
You mean like the guest characters, how they become his like crew?
They really do become like the cast of season 1.
Right. I don't think we didn't know that. I think we were all like, yep, and they're going to come back together. We guessed like exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah, we pretty much called it, yeah.
Because it doesn't go deeper. Like, it's that kind of trackable.
I mean, sure, but I think, like, right now, for example, like, maybe we will see Cobb Vanth again.
He 100%. He's going to be part of the crew season 2. Absolutely.
A lot of the things that you feel have been done poorly to him by omission here, I guess, are possibly his episode. We don't know. Like, apparently the whole town follows this motherfucker, so he probably did something right. And I feel like by the end of the episode, we got at least like begrudging friendship out of the two of them.
I think they were friends, like, to begin with.
We got begrudging friendship, like, in the first scene almost. Like,
yeah. The minute they saw that monster, they were like, all right, we have a deal. All right, so I feel like we're going to try and keep these short. So let's wrap this up with a real quick one thing you liked. We're going to do something different this season. One thing you liked, one thing you didn't from this episode. Davis.
There actually are a lot of things I liked, but I'm going to give two quick. The first scene is like great. That whole like other planet cool thing ending with the whatever. That's pretty cool. And then the final encounter, even though they changed crate dragons, is just a like, even I can't even think of movie sequences that seem that big and that realized. It was and so cool. It's like, I was like in awe. This had to be so much money. Goddamn.
Weren't you just picturing that motherfucker like swimming like a fucking Olympic swimmer in a pool underneath the sand?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Doing his little like flip and stick his head up at the mountain and shit.
Yeah, and then just the thing I guess I dislike is just that the universe still seems like so small. By the way, we've been like arguing the minutia. I am like, I think that like the average casual person will love it, and there is a lot to like love. This is like I give it like 7. Like it's still like such a spectacle, such a cool thing to watch. You know, it's not all negative. I just want to leave that thing.
It's the best thing on Disney Plus for sure.
That's true.
I still think Imagineering is like the best thing on Disney Plus. If you haven't seen it,
I wish there was still like 50 years of Disney history that they didn't cover.
Yeah, you're right.
So that there could be more of it.
Yeah, you're right.
Alex, best and worst.
Okay, the best thing for me, the thing that made me feel like, oh my God, we're in space, anything can happen, is when the crate dragon's breath turned out to be like the most insane like Godzilla. It gave me that feeling of like when a Godzilla monster shows off his power and you're like, oh, like those guys melted really quick. It looked really good and it was really scary. And something that I didn't like was that in general, I liked what happened in the episode. But if I want to talk about the writing, I'm going to say that the first couple scenes of this show and like the first scene really had this issue. And I feel like a little later it had it too, that like maybe they didn't get to rehearse the lines very much or something, because there were a couple scenes in here that had like the like high school play sort of like vibe of like we're saying the dialogue, but we're not really thinking about what the words are that are coming out of our mouth as we're saying them.
I think that's to Pedro Pascal's credit. Every line he delivers is like he just like sells it. You like feel it. They really nailed the casting on that.
Amy Sedaris was really funny. Still, I like really like her character, but I just felt like there were a couple scenes with her, especially where they kind of went into like Shakespeare mode with the talking a little bit. Same thing with Timothy Olyphant and him trading a couple lines in the bar when they were talking. Like a couple times, it didn't feel real to me.
Totally natural, yeah. I do like that they used Amy Sedaris like much more sparingly. I love her as an actress, and I definitely liked her in this like more because they didn't overdo it.
And it's fun that they have a history now too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jesse?
I loved the end of that opening scene. Even though it was so extremely obvious when he's like, I promise not to hurt you with my own hand or whatever.
Yep.
It's very obvious what's going to happen.
Oh, man, that was so cool so cool.
But I love the payoff of the fact that those eyes we saw in the very, very beginning led to the things coming out of the darkness. That's always cool. It'll never not be cool. Dope. Great scene.
It also like let you know that he's not a big softy boy in now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of cool fight scenes. Him in a melee fight scene where like he's using his like armor or he like headbutts the guy's fist. Those are like little moments where I'm just like, you're the coolest guy.
And the scared Gamorrean.
Like the little boy in me is just like, oh yeah.
The other dude, he's like, yo, am I good?
Just like biffs the jump. Yeah.
And I think if I had to do two things I disliked, one, going back to what you guys were talking about with the acting sometimes feels like no one knows what the hell they're saying. They're just saying it. And that always annoys me. It happened a lot this episode. But the thing that really got me, because it confirms that another point of view is totally canonical, R5's back, baby!
The spy who loved me.
I was not pleased. I was so heartbroken. I was like, oh no, R5 did survive. And that means that story from that one book is real. It broke my heart a little because it means the rest of those stories are canonical as well. So I'm just going to move on and never talk about it again.
At least the cute little Jaw was real, who had dreams of something more.
You know what? If he ends up on a if he's part of the crew, it's all forgiven. It's all forgiven.
Season 3, he's going to be the co-lead.
He's going to be the new Baby Yoda because Baby Yoda is going to become like Bart Simpson.
They did not do much with Baby Yoda this episode, but
I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
I think they did too much Baby Yoda. I think they cut to him too much. Yeah.
He went inside the spittoon.
Yeah, when he was in the spittoon, I was like, that's gross.
All right, well, that is it for this one. We'll see you guys after the next episode. Here's, fingers crossed, another hour. I'm totally down. But that's it. More Mandalorian on the way. Please, any comments, any questions, suggestions, things you're thinking about, leave them down below, y'all. And we will see you next time. Davis, take it away.
And remember, keep your friends close, and R5 is alive! So good for him.
Where's the payoff? Bring the strippers and booze! yes, we do occasionally talk about video games. Bring the strippers and booze! I don't have time for video games. Bring the strippers and booze!
Oh, thank God, I don't need pants now.
Hey, JC, what are you doing? Not much. Making a fortune.
It's a promotional broadcast.
Yeah, now sing music.
It's a promotional broadcast.
Bring the strippers and booze!
It's a promotional broadcast.
I'm here to ask and answer one simple question.
It's a promotional